So, I think everybody's here. Everybody's ready?
Yes.
You feeling good? Okay, so this is going to be a lecture about film history, film theory, or actually I will show you some examples from different film. From the very earliest ones, 120 years ago they were made, 125 years ago, and to some modern examples. But what I want to stress is what I want to ask you about is what is the nature of film? What is the nature of moving images with sound? Video, television, film. I want to look at film in a different way, and I want you to have some tools for analyzing film, video, television in a new way. And it's quite basic, in a way. First, I want to show you a classical film example from Hollywood, early Hollywood. It's 1939, and it's Gone with the Wind, very famous film. And in French, it has a very strange title, something with autant de enlevant. Oui? Ah oui, c'est comme ça. Very complicated, but it's Gone with the Wind, in Danish, Borte med blæsten. And so, here it goes. Watch it, just a section of it, 3-4 minutes, and then I'll ask you some questions afterwards. What was it we saw? Okay.
You let me on. You made me believe you wanted America.
Now, Scarlett, be fair. I never at any time...
You did. It's true you did. I hate you like that. I can't think of anything better.
So, okay, we've now seen a section from Gone with the Wind, and I want to ask you some questions about what we saw. What was it we saw? What was this?
A love scene.
A love scene, yes. And
Well, I would have said declaration of love. So.
a what? A declaration of
Yes.
love, yes. How many persons did we see in all?
3.
3 persons, yes. And where is this supposed to take place?
Probably in a mansion.
In a mansion, yes. But where? What?
In a room?
In a room,
Like
yes. But
study,
what?
Maybe?
Library.
Library is something, a big mansion. But what country?
England.
Really?
England?
That's America.
America, isn't it? Yes. About what time do we know that? Looking at the sort of the decoration,
20.
the,
1860? 1860?
yeah,
Something like
their clothes and so on. You, without looking at the screens, you remember what they were, how they were dressed. The men, how were the men dressed? Sharp. They were very good looking, right? Yes. So, and we're in the some sort of upper high. It's high society, or it's wealthier people. Okay. So, we can tell quite a lot about what we saw and what happened in this scene, about the characters. Maybe we even know that this is the woman playing Scarlett O'Hara is called Vivian Lee in real life, and so on. But now is the tricky question. How many times did they cut in this scene? Oh, you guessed it, Catherine.
No, I did not.
How many times did they cut? Because they wanted to change camera or something. So, you know what I mean by cutting?
Yeah.
Probably like 15 times.
Yeah, like 15, 20
You
times.
guess at what?
Like 15.
15?
Yeah, at least.
Yes? Any other guesses?
20.
20? But yes?
I'm guessing around maybe 5 or 6, but I think
5 or 6? Yes? Did you notice any? Camilla, did you notice the cuts?
Yeah, of course. But I didn't really count them, but I did.
No, because normally we don't count the cuts. Yes, Miriam?
I didn't count them either, but I noticed that during the long shots, when they were further away, there were less cuts, and when they were going to the really close-ups, when she was doing this declaration of love, then there were more cuts there because they were cutting between her and him.
Yes, that's true. That's their cutting back and forth. It's common in the dialogue. Okay, how many times did the camera move, or were there camera moves? By this I mean that the camera is panning, like this, or tilting, or traveling. It could be traveling like this, or going up, going down, or a combination of that, or zooming in or zooming out. All of that I call camera movements. Were there any camera movements in this scene we saw? Yes, Ken?
And like when she saw this ceramic thing, and
Yes.
it focused then on her picking it and then on her throwing it. I think that was all one shot, but I'm not sure.
There was a camera movement there, yes. And Miriam?
It also zoomed in on Scarlett and the blonde guy when they were face to face to each other. There was also a zoom there.
Yeah, they zoomed, there was a zoom in there.
I think there was also movement when he left the room, like the blonde guy. So
Yeah.
focus on the door later on.
Yeah, it's a good guess because when someone leaves a room, then you probably follow him with the camera. Ali?
When she threw the vase,
Yes?
the camera was from
Yeah?
the other side.
Yes?
And then when that man's appear, it's also moved to the left side.
Yes. But now, when I ask you about, yes?
Yeah, I think there was movement almost in every cut, like at least the zooming or something like that.
Almost every cut, yes?
Yeah.
But we didn't notice it while we were watching it. We are sort of sucked into the love scene, to the dialogue, so we are just following that, following the action. And we don't see how the film is actually made. But that's what I want to draw your attention to, that there's a lot of cuts here, and there's a lot of camera movements. What about music? Uh-oh. Was there music?
Yeah.
Is that because there's an orchestra next door that's playing in the big house? No? No, it's regular film music meant. Why is there music in this scene?
To emphasize.
To emphasize emotions or the speed. But was it all the time or was it only part of the time there was music?
Until she slapped him,
Yeah?
it changed the music.
Yes, that's true. Yes, yes. It was like waiting to see what's going to happen. Okay. So, all of this passes unnoticed when we're in the cinema watching the film, and that's the whole idea of Hollywood production. They want it to be seamless. We don't notice it, but it is there. And now I want to spoil this scene completely by repeating it, showing it again, but this time I want all the women in here, every time there is a cut, you yell quite loud, cut! so that we really notice it. And all of men, each time you see a camera movement, you go moo, taking a lot of air and make a long sound because the camera movements are usually very long. And beware, you might miss movements or you might miss cuts. Now watch what happens with the camera.
Cut!
Move.
Cut! Cut!
Move.
There's a war starting.
Cut!
Sir, you should have made your presence known.
In the middle of that beautiful love scene. That wouldn't have been very tactful, would it? But don't worry.
Cuts. How many cuts did we have in all? You counted?
I counted 23.
23?
Me too.
Yeah, 23. Yeah. It's quite a lot, isn't it? Yeah. And the moves, yeah?
I counted 11.
11?
I
Yeah.
counted 14.
14, yes. It could be a little difficult. Sometimes it's very slow.
Yeah.
Why do they, in classical Hollywood film and in many other films, move the camera so much?
Because it feels like it's alive, you know, like the person who would watch it.
Yes.
It's also like have this, okay, it moves. There's a bit of movement, then I feel like I'm watching it.
Yes. It becomes more alive. But also, it helps you, the viewer, to understand the depth of the room. Because when the camera moves, you understand that this is not just a flat, two-dimensional thing. Even though it's happening on a flat screen, you understand the depth because things move differently when they're close to the camera and when they're far away from the camera. So it's to help understand the room. It's also to help understand the action because you follow the character. When he walks out the door, the camera sort of follows him a bit. So you see, okay, he's walking out the door. And also if the camera pans and points to something, it's because that is important. It's like, see, look at this. And you saw the instance when she was picking up the vase, the ceramic thing. Did you think about there was something special there?
There was like rapid movement.
Yes, like it moves down very quickly.
Very quickly down. It was different from the other movements.
It also seemed like it was almost point of view, like it was her eye movement, we're following her kind of frustration and then cutting to her smashing it.
Yes, and so the rapid movement portrays her frustration, but it also happens before she picks up the vase. That means the people, probably a man at this time, controlling the camera, knew already she is going to pick up that thing. So I foreshadow that by going down and looking at the vase so that we understand it and we see it and she picks it up. So the camera movement can help us to anticipate what's going to happen. And that's strange. We think of film as something that's just recording what's happening. No, here it's guiding our attention and foreseeing the action. So the camera movements are very important in understanding how film tells us a story. Okay. The cutting, why do they cut so often? Is it because these actors were not very good? They could only memorize one short line at a time, and then they had to read, what is the next line?
It's a dialogue.
It's a dialogue, yeah. But why do you cut?
To make it more dynamic, maybe?
Yeah, it's more dynamic.
Yeah,
yes.
you want to see the facial expressions, like how they say it, their eyes and their just mimics.
Yes. So, but you could just show them very close up, both of them in the same picture, could you not? Ali?
I think if they focus just, or they keep it just in without cut, it will be a little bit bored. And then, like when they cut, it will be like to show the other dimensions of the picture.
Yes. Leah. Yes.
This is a wild guess, but maybe also to keep your attention on the person speaking, because if it's filming both people, then it's really possible that you would just look at the other person that's not speaking and then not really focus on what's happening with the actual person speaking.
Yes. But sometimes the camera shifts from one person to the next without that person saying something, but it's because it's important to show the reaction of that person. If the person is smiling or frowning or not paying attention, that could be important. So the camera points to what they want us to see. Yes.
It's also an intense discussion, so you want to express through the camera as well the intensity of the situation.
Yes. And I think what we saw here was a couple of times that they start out with a sort of an overview of the room and the two persons, and then they come into dialogue, and then they go cut, closer up. And that again, when you see Cary Grant there at the end, he also moves in closer to her, and then again we have the dialogue shifting back and forth. So it's a reaction shot. Music. What was the music doing here? There was something special about it when with the vase? No, when she slapped.
It's building suspense, but then when it reaches its highest point of suspense, which is when she's throwing the vase, it gets the loudest and then goes. I'm not sure if it's gone completely, but very, very silent.
Yeah.
To like show us when the height of the scene, so to say.
But it's really strange that we have become so accustomed to film music that we don't notice it, because it's absurd. Normally, film is trying to be as realistic as possible, but it's completely unrealistic that there would be music accompanying, going up and down, following a scene. That doesn't happen in real life, ever. Unless you're a very trained musician, always going around playing. But otherwise, it's a strange combination of how we understand film, how we watch it, and what we've been accustomed to. Now I think we notice this film music because it's a little too much. I think it's become too classical, it's too romantic, too juicy in a way. But in modern film, there's still a lot of music, and we don't really notice it because it fits well. The idea of Hollywood film, traditional filmmaking, is to make it as smooth and seamless as possible. Continuity editing, where you don't see how the film was made, but you just follow the action and the story. But it's interesting to take out a scene and start looking at it in this way. And I can do that with a lot of film. You can do it actually with all films. And it has the advantage that if you're looking at a poor old Danish film, for example, or a lousy film on Netflix, and you think, oh, it's really boring, start looking at how they cut, how they move the camera, how they use the sounds, and then it becomes interesting at a new level of how did they make this film and why isn't it good? They should have made it differently. Okay, so I'll move on to another example. This is a more modern, newer, still in classical Hollywood terms. It's from 1990. It's with Kevin Costner, Dances with Wolves. Also a great film. He is out here, we see it's from first part of the film. He's out on the prairie. He's a soldier, Kevin Costner. He has been given a post out on the prairie, out in the wilderness. And he wants to go out there and experience the wilderness before it's too late and everything has been civilized there. So he's coming out on the prairie, he's on the way there, and there's a fellow driving a cart with his luggage, but otherwise it's just him and his horse. And out there on the prairie, there's a short scene where he sort of meets nature or the big horizon for the first time. And I want you to pay attention again to the way it's cut and what camera movements there are. There's not very much dialogue in this, and the dialogue is not important at all. So I'll try to show that. And so the scene ends there, and there's no explanation. The film is not coming back to this and telling us what actually happened there. There wasn't any dialogue in the last part. And my question is, and this is not a tricky question, this is an open question, what did you experience, or what did he experience? What happened there in the last part of the film? In the beginning there was some dialogue about the Indians, and there are some bad guys, we don't want to meet them. And then he stands there out alone, there's his horse, the grass, and then what happens? Did you see an Indian attacking him?
No.
No. What was the movement? Yeah?
We had the camera angle kind of moving towards
Yeah.
him, kind
Yeah.
of taking the position
That-
maybe as point of view. Right?
That's also, of course, what you meant.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah. But I just want to make sure that it was the camera moving into him, moving closer to him from behind. And Kathleen, yes?
And then it kind of switched to like from when he was like then mounting the horse, so it
Yes.
kind of zoomed on the horse, and then you saw his foot in the stirrup, and then he like
Yes.
so it kind of like obviously there was a cut, but it was a kind of continual like
Yes.
movement through
There was
the
a-
two shots.
Yeah, a certain continuation of movement, and there at the very end there, it was, up till then it's been fairly calm the way they cut, but there were some rapid camera moves and some rapid cuts. And that gives us the impression that something happens. But what was it that happened? We don't know, but there are some loud sounds, and that may make us feel uncomfortable and afraid, because that's our nature. We are physical beings, and we react in a physical way to the rapid movements of the camera and the cutting, and also to the loud, sudden sounds. It makes us feel a bit anxious. And I think that's what they want. They want us to share a feeling of anxiety that comes to him when he realizes he's out there in the open, and he's alone, and nature is huge, and maybe it's some sort of revelation of the divine or the sublime, or maybe he's just getting scared of Indians or being alone. We don't really know, and we don't need an interpretation. It's powerful when it's left open. Anxiety is when you're anxious about something, but you don't know what. Fear is when you're afraid of something. Anxiety is when there is no direct object. You don't really know what or why you are anxious, right? And I think that's what they want to show with this scene. Yes, Ali?
The sound that was before his movement, it doesn't necessarily be real in the film. I mean, it's actually happened in the scenes, but maybe it's just like being added to give us the feeling that he really like got scared or like.
Yeah. Okay. Good point. In a way, you can say everything here has been added for the benefit of the experience in the cinema. Because what does it say in the script? It says, well, that need a scene on the prairie where he had some sort of feeling of something bigger than himself out in nature there. How do you portray that? How do you film that? Kevin Costner, who's also the director of this film, knows that he has this stone face. He can't show many things with his eyes or his mimics. So he just stands there. But what they do to make the action is they move the camera rapidly. They cut in the editing rapidly. They add some sounds, inexplicable sounds, also of the wind. They start a wind machine in order to make the grass move, and they take away the noise from the wind machine. But so in essence, nothing happened out on the prairie that day when they recorded. There was no pro-filmic event. And the film is therefore not by its nature filming what happens in front of the camera. No, filming is using the camera and the microphone and the editing to tell a story as if it happened, really happened. But nothing happened out on the prairie, but we get the impression that something happened. So it's constructed. And that's the way film works. You don't need something to happen in order to make a film with a lot of action. Okay. So I think we'll take a short break and then I'll continue. It will be James Bond next. Okay. Okay. So let's take a break.